Hi, I'm Liz Seeley, founder of Starry-Eyed Strategy, and I help you turn creativity into your greatest competitive advantage. After decades partnering with the world's best, biggest, and most beloved brands, I want to take you behind the scenes to see how the most creative leaders turn ideas into impact. Each episode features leaders from top CEOs and CMOs to founders and authors, revealing how they stay inspired to create brands that launch and last, and how you can do it too. You'll walk away with practical lessons and tools you can use, whether you're repositioning your brand, rallying your team, or planning your next big launch. So let's get started and stay starry-eyed. My guest today is Jack Gibbons. Jack is CEO of FB Society, a restaurant group that incubates and grows innovative restaurant concepts. It started with one Texas-inspired restaurant and grew into a complete collection of creative brands, including Whiskey Cake, Sisty Vines, Haywire, Mexican Sugar, I Declare, and many more. Jack's created and co-founded these. He also led development and sale of other brands, including Velvet Taco and Twin Peaks, exiting at strong multiples. Jack, you and your powerhouse team, I'm excited to discuss today, create, incubate, and scale these hospitality brands across the country. Your creative drive and instinct for market opportunities deliver the company's mission to create and execute experiences never imagined. I'm especially excited because I feel like I've been waiting to meet you since I first went to Mexican Sugar about a dozen years ago. And I know before FB Society, you spent 25 years with Papa's Restaurant Group, rising from server to chief operating officer at Papado, where you helped grow the concept from one location as well to a national brand. I think they have, 40 stores now. And I know your passion lies in developing teams who share your commitment to creating these experiences and delivering exceptional market value to shape the future of hospitality. So Jack, welcome to Stay Starry-Eyed.
Thank you, Liz. I don't think I could have said that better myself. That was really impressive. Who is that guy?
That's you. And as we begin, Jack, I'd love for you to speak directly to the brand leader listening. What do you hope they'll take away from our conversation today? What's one thing that you hope they'll try or think differently about for their own brands and businesses?
I think bigger. It's actually harder than it sounds, because it really requires someone to get out of their daily, routine and regular thought process and really kind of challenge themselves and what they're doing and their brand and what it's capable of. And I think it's something that I have to be super intentional about because you just fall in the trap of just executing, opening restaurants, getting into the next thing where ultimately to really like evolve a brand, you need to stay very much thinking about where it's going and what's the next big thing that makes it unique and special and differentiate it.
You're exactly right. I found that it definitely takes time. You have to carve out the time. When I worked at Yum Brands, the biggest restaurant company in the world, we said it
Yeah.
was about the shark that's closest to your body. You're just trying to get by.
Yeah.
And you really have to carve out the time to have those big ideas. How do you find that time, and how often are you taking that to think bigger?
So sometimes I do it intentionally by taking a trip. Last year I went to Dubai for a week just by myself, visiting restaurants and meeting people, and just like took the time to consider where I want our organization to go, how it should be structured, the new projects I want to work on. And sometimes it's spending time at the gym on jack time that I just like all of a sudden that's where a lot of good ideas come to me.
I love that Jack time. You got to take a little time for yourself to ponder.
If you can't show up for yourself, you can't show up for anybody else.
I love that. Well, Jack, tell us a little bit about how you started in the brand building world at Papa's. I know you spent a long time there, and it sounds like you rose through the ranks, understanding all levels of operations too.
Yeah, I've like coming out of while I was actually in college, I started working at the first Papacitos, went to the first Papado, went into management, cut my teeth there. It's a very operational company. I mean, ops was everything there. And it was a lot of A personalities. So it was interesting. It was if and anybody who's been to the Pappas restaurants, the quality of food, the consistency, it's just a great organization, and I'm proud to have spent some time there and learned a lot from the owners, Chris and Harris. So it was a really good experience, and it kind of set me up for the next phase of my life. But those 25 years were I wouldn't trade them in for anything.
That's amazing. Which of those early experiences, as you look back, shape the way you think about leadership now?
You know, I think there were so many. It's like think about it. Over 25 years, I grew up there, so I went from like you know, a dumb immature kid to a more immature older person. So in those lessons, just about people, everything you could do wrong. I did a lot of wrong things on their dime, but I learned every time and didn't repeat the mistakes.
That's brilliant. I also love that you were able to see a brand holding company, a hospitality holding company with multiple brands. How did that set you up for success as you think about now creating your own concept?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I heard this term for the first time the other day. It's called Mumbo, and it's multi-unit, multi-brand operators. And I think there's a rise of Mumbos in the U.S. And it's this creative force of people who are passionate about bringing brands out into the world. They have to be certainly talented and creative enough to do multiple brands at one time, which every private equity group thinks is impossible. And the reality of it is, it's sparking innovation in restaurant industry like we've never seen before.
Too true. Yeah, we've done a lot of work on multiple brands within fat brands, go-to foods. It does seem like that is more prominent. Why do you think that is, other than shared resources, which we'll get into? I want to talk to you about how you separate but versus what you bring together. Why do you think they are on the rise?
So it's interesting. So if we're because the rise tends to be in full service restaurants, right? There are some that have multiple fast casuals, but this tends to really be a movement lately that I've seen in full service. And I think if I have one brand and I'm going into a market and I want to get the main location, it's really hard with one brand that it may not be available. What's going on with why the rise of Mumbos and multi-unit operators is because if and why private equity doesn't see it, I think, or other groups that are not doing it is if I have three brands going into a market in, say, Charlotte, I'm going to need three different mains that fit the brands location wise for real estate. Or if I only have one and it's not available, I really can't enter the market, or I end up choosing a bad location. If I have flexibility on where, different brands I can put in different markets, and then once I hit an area that I call a deep well, where a restaurant opens and the adjoining concepts that are not ours don't decline in revenue, then I know I can put another brand there. So it sort of like really gives me this unique opportunity to do that. And I think there's also a change, and there's going to be a change in the next couple of years of how groups look at growth. I think groups think that they have to grow out of their own personal state and or region, and that's sort of a requirement for private equity. And I think it's a mistake. I think if you're a regional powerhouse, there's almost more power in that than being a national player. And I think the tides are turning on that because you'll really own your purchasing, your all the different details in that regional area, that you could be master of the universe instead of diluting yourself and trying to take on more and grow nationally. So those are some of the things that, in talking to a lot of other operators, we've kind of been having these chats about this.
Totally agree. There are the economies of scale. You should own your home market and be able to leverage all of that. Definitely do that before you have disparate locations across. Is that a strategy you've kept in mind as you've expanded from Dallas and beyond?
No, hell no. We made all the mistakes first. So but we're learning from those mistakes. And I think that you know, I just think, like, for us, we right now are very focused on being a regional powerhouse. Dallas is our home. It's where, Texas in general, you've got these four great cities in Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas that are growing at great rates and have they're great places to work. And it's interesting, why would I want to really focus on out of state when every other out of state concept that's any good wants to come into my territory? So we're really focused on protecting our turf and making it really special. And we'll still open restaurants out of state. It's just not, we just don't feel like we have to do it anymore. We'll do it when it's the right opportunity.
Whenever we're working on a national chain on our starry-eyed team, we always do research in Dallas. That is where you want to be. If you can make it in Dallas, you can make it anywhere. I won't break out into song, but it is so true that
It is.
why not own your home market when everybody wants to come?
Yeah, and it's funny because that's a full-time job just being great because we invite the competition. We're always friends with everybody, but to keep our customers, we know that we have to execute at a high level consistently and keep those relationships.
Definitely. Where does the attitude of learning and failing fast and, making these mistakes and trying again come from for you?
I,
How did you
I think
cultivate that?
yeah, I think just probably from experience, because if you don't, I tend to be a quick responder. So if somebody texts me, I end up texting back fast. So I'm sort of one of those impatient people that tend to do everything a little bit faster than I probably should. I probably speak before I really think. So that's probably where it comes from. But once we know something's not working, like I think it would be crazy to keep doing the same dumb thing. And we don't have a lot of red tape in our company, so we feel really comfortable with making changes when we have to and doing it really, thinking through the problems with a lot of intentionality, but learning from our mistakes as well.
Makes sense. And how about the visionary abilities? Where does that come from? The ability to think bigger and have these cool ideas.
I think most people that get called visionary, it's like completely overrated. I think most people, the reality of it is there's a team of people that are probably very talented who actually should get a lot more credit than they deserve. And so, as people give credit to like one leader or that leader or this leader for being a visionary, I think if you peeled back the curtain, you'd find a lot more talented people around them. And I think the real sign of leadership is being able to hire people smarter than you and keep them engaged and around you and feeling like they're part of the mission.
Exactly right. I read that you're the oldest of five.
I am.
I'm the oldest of six.
All right.
I also say some things that maybe I should think through from time to time and react fast. How do you think that coming from a big family impacts your leadership?
I think when you grow up in a family with good values, it makes a big impact on you. And I had great role models growing up and as parent figures. And I think that's something that I aspire to do myself, not only, personally, but also in my business.
And do you have kids as well?
I do. I have three children and we're currently empty nesters and enjoying that style of life for sure. But three beautiful kids.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And are they still in Texas with you?
Actually, two of them are. One is in New Zealand. She went to University of Texas, fell in love with a boy who happened to be a Kiwi, and she's been in Australia and New Zealand for the last 6 years, and it's been an adventure, but it gives my wife and I a reason to go to New Zealand as frequently as we can.
It's brilliant. Well, I have 5 little ones, and
Oh my gosh.
if ever I get sad about them getting bigger, I look forward to things like that, living
Ah,
contiguously.
well, it'll make you sad when they go away, trust me. But what are those ages?
13 to just turned 6.
Wow, holy cow. Yeah, they got a whole life in front of them. That's exciting.
Yes, it's awesome. Well, back to our brand building. You built these category challenging brands by spotting gaps before others do. I remember used to do a lot of PepsiCo work. I remember when Mexican Sugar opened like a dozen years ago. It was so exciting for the whole city and beyond. How do you identify and evaluate some of these new opportunities and dream up with the team these new concepts?
Some of them are I could tell you a story. The gentleman, the developer who actually helped us to do Mexican Sugar, uh talked me into it. We ran into each other one night at Whiskey Cake with my business partner Randy, and we had talked to him about trying to do this idea, which we had, which ended up being 60 Vines around a wine concept with kegs, and he couldn't do it in that development because there was a non-compete with a certain amount of wines on your menu. So he said, I'd really love to do a Mexican restaurant. And so he finally talked. That night he said, if you were to do a Mexican restaurant, what would it be like? And the first thing that was said was, you'd make the customer feel rich. And that kind of sparked this whole conversation around, what the finishes would be, what the menu would be like, what the design would feel like, and how do we really differentiate it from existing, Mexican restaurants in Dallas that had to be like 12, 13 years ago. So that's sort of how things usually happen. Ironically, the same developer, we were having a happy hour at Mexican Sugar, and he had a napkin, kind of like a Southwest Airline napkin story. He told me that he had this deal brewing that he would get the Shops of Legacy West property, and he had this whole vision of what it could be, and he had one block that he didn't know what to do with, and it was called the K Block. And on the napkin, he wrote the fun place. And he said, Jack, I would like you and your business partner to go come up with a big idea for this block and come back to me, and let's see if we could do it together. And that ended up being Legacy Food Hall and Haywire kind of combined, and that was an adventure to create that. So those sometimes those moments happen just for all different reasons.
That is so cool. I remember when that opened too, I tried to take some Yum Faves there because it was one of the first, at least in this country, to come over. That trend has been thriving across Europe, and it's finally here. You helped expand, I think, the return of the food call in this country.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because we there's a longer story, but we were opening a restaurant in Russia, and we were very good friends with the people at Heineken, and they invited us to Amsterdam and said, if you can stop in Amsterdam, we'll give you tours of breweries that nobody gets a chance to see, which of course, who's going to say no to that, right? So we were there, and there was a concept called Food Holland, and it was a new concept that was a train depot that got turned into a food hall, where the owners of the food hall actually ran the bars. And this is like 2016. We came back to the States, and really the two big food halls at the time that were popular, because food halls really weren't a thing, was Chelsea Market in New York and the downtown market in LA. And when you went to both of them, they were both very busy in the day. Nobody went there at night. And they were also, there was no bars, there was no place to sit really. So what we did is kind of go back to the drawing board and think, how do we drive people at night? And that's where we came up with the entertainment area, with the music and just all the events. So our food halls kind of stay busy all day. So after the first one that we opened, we have a second one in Nashville at Fifth and Broadway, which is about 115,000 square feet. And it's got a 60 vines up on the roof. And then the third one that we
Ooh,
opened,
sorry to interrupt. What's that one called?
Assembly Hall.
Yes. Okay, I've been to that one too. Go on.
Yeah, yeah. And then the third one that we're going to open is going to be called Shaver Hall, and that is in Manhattan. It's in the Lord and Taylor building that's actually owned by Amazon. Amazon is our partner in this journey, and that it's going to be beautiful. It has about 30,000 square feet on Fifth Avenue, and it's got a bunch of different bars. It's got, I think, 15 different stalls with some Michelin mention guys. It's got a one-star Michelin omakase guy. We're opening our own concept called Tallow. And then it actually has a wine bar with conveyor belt charcuterie going around it that will be selling charcuterie and wine together, which is going to be really fun.
Spectacular.
Yeah,
When did it
super
open?
fun. March.
March. My birthday's in March. Let's meet there.
Yeah, we'll be there. We're
What
actually
was
doing a an opening with the James Beard Association, so it'll be really spectacular. And Jamie will put you on the invite list.
That's amazing. Well, what was the very first concept that you dreamed up? What was that Texas inspired that started all of this?
It's called the Ranch at Las Colinas, and we actually just had our 18th anniversary. And it's had, besides COVID, it's had 18 years of same store positive sales, and this year it'll finish in 15 million in revenue. And we're really proud of it. It's a beautiful, fun concept that has like such a local cult following, and very business friendly. So it's really great.
Oh, that's amazing. And what is the makeup of the complete family, the brand family or the portfolio? How many different concepts and locations do you have now?
So we have 45 concepts, I believe we'll finish the year with, and well, excuse me, 45 locations and 12 concepts.
12 concepts. And how do you think of them as this brand architecture, this collection? How do you and the team manage them to make sure that they are growing at the rates you want them to be?
Last year we actually had 30% growth, so it was a huge year for us. We opened over 9 new locations, and we really kind of have a formula from how we start new things, and then B, how we allocate capital. So as the concepts that actually do the best returns get the best use of capital. So we're pretty disciplined in how we do that because that kind of keeps us moving forward. And then as things are growing out and we put teams behind it, it creates more space for me and the kind of team to create a new brand. And then that's kind of our next focus after that.
I see. And how do you evaluate some of those early ideas, Jack, when you're thinking about a new concept, say, we can get into new menu items too. Do you do consumer testing? Do you use your food halls as incubators or pop-ups? What's the process?
Kind of all the above. We have used our food hall as an incubator and have spun a brand off of that. But at the same time, I think, it's usually like a big idea, meets the right person, meets the right real estate. And when those three things come together, we go through a process that we call our DNA. And in our DNA, which stands for differentiation, nuances, and attitudes, we actually put like kind of a stakeholder group together of people that will have influence on this brand and maybe even like some target consumers. And we kind of get together and we put together it all on paper, like what is the differentiators, what is the uniqueness about it, what's special about it. And we really kind of take a lot of time to put that all together before we actually put like a shovel in the dirt.
Mhm. And do you test it with consumers either qualitatively in, you know, discussions or quantitatively online surveys or anything?
No, probably more dinner parties and stuff. That's how we come up with our best names. We'll take a list of names and you show up at a dinner party and say, what do you think of Velvet Taco? And you get really interesting responses. And so that's usually how we do it.
That's awesome. I know a lot of bigger companies who have to just do the research over and over and over and, sell it into the board and get all the justification. It sounds like you're able to leverage your intuition, your expertise, your experience to make those decisions a little bit faster.
Every time you go through another layer, it's dilutive to the creative. So I think that big companies are not good at creating new brands. They're good at growing out existing brands, but they're completely dilutive to creative.
Agree. I also have seen that a lot of big brands, or if worse, if they turn it over to some ad agency, fail to define the DNA that you're talking about and translate it to the experience. What are those, without giving anything proprietary away, what are the core elements of the DNA? And do you take it down to the culinary point of view or signature products? How detailed does it get?
Yeah, I mean, it gets detailed to a certain degree, but where basically a lot of brands, like even when I was at Pappas, so we would have, a Mexican brand, a Cajun brand, a steakhouse, and what tended to work in one, the other groups would tend to take those ideas and move on them. Where with our group, we really don't do that because everybody has to think through the DNA. And if it doesn't fit the DNA, to point to the DNA, you don't do it. And if it fits the DNA, you then it's a kind of step one of, yeah, I should really move forward with this idea. And what it does is keep the brand unique and special, and it kind of, I guess, creates guardrails to it, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I live for this, Jack. Can you tell us an example of a time when something fit and something didn't, since what you don't do is just as important as what you do?
Yeah, like operationally in restaurants, which is one of the bigger challenges. How do you make sure, like, and especially when you have multiple restaurants, how do you, you know, be able to keep your finger on the pulse a little bit to make sure that you're staying on brand? One way that we did it when we created Mexican Sugar, this weird sort of quirky thing that we put into the DNA is that the staff had to wear red shoelaces. And so every time I walk into a Mexican Sugar, if the staff is not wearing red shoelaces, I know that they're not probably cooking the meat right. I know they're probably not doing a lot of other things right. So it's just this way to make sure that we're staying the course, because I think when I notice that when they all have the right red shoelaces, that everything else seems to be firing on all cylinders.
It's so funny. And your point about, something working in one concept, it may or may not work in another. I've seen a lot of these holding companies, the MUMBOs, a lot of times they do get diluted across the brands because people are trying to manage them similarly just for efficiency. What do you share when it comes to, resources, insights, ingredients, maybe supply chain might make sense. And what do you keep separate across the concepts?
I think this is really important for these kind of companies, and I have a lot of discussions with other groups that are working on this because we're all sharing best practices. And I think there's some things in operations that absolutely should not cross over, and brand, but then there's some things like finance and accounting that actually, should cross over. And then there's some efficiencies in real estate, construction and development. So I think the key thing is you keep your platform as very focused on things that can be done in any brand without impacting it, but your operational and brand, techniques and points of DNA shouldn't be affected by any of those decisions.
Totally. And how do you protect the soul of the brand as the DNA while it scales? Well, when growth often demands efficiency or standardization, how do you protect that DNA as it goes into different locations or different markets?
I think it's interesting. One person can't protect the DNA. You need to be an ambassador of it, but ultimately, the reality of it is when you scale, you lose certain amount of control. And what you need to do is make sure through the whole process you're building brand ambassadors who live the DNA. That way, as you grow, you'll grow the right way. If it's one guy trying to go in and correct everybody and keep them on course, it never works.
Now, this is a little bit technical, but what sort of materials do you put in place? A lot of people will create a brand book or a brand Bible and have everybody, read that. And I think that's especially important for maybe the activation or marketing people to convey the brand across touch points in the same
Yes.
way. What elements do you use either externally to guests or internally for team members so they all understand the brand's DNA?
So I think, if you manipulate it too much, it comes off as like phony or fake. So building things in are kind of like, the type of like glassware that you buy, the type of ice that you use, like the details in the experience to the guest actually probably do a better job of cueing the guest than some overt sign or trying too hard to, it comes on too strong and too fake, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. So it's more about the environment that you create. Is that what you mean?
Through your training. I mean, ideally, there's it's an army, right? And so how a guest sizes up a brand is usually the connection with the person that they go on and get served by. So if your training is just okay, you're going to get exposed eventually, or you'll just have too many, not good percentages going for you, where the more resources you put into your training and you could really communicate and really make a better connection percentage of times effectively, it helps you a lot.
That makes perfect sense. And what about from a brand story standpoint? What I love about a lot of the FB Society concepts is that each one has a story about the inspiration. Some of the other hospitality companies, they lose the magic by saying, "Oh, it's these same two guys." Yep, these same two guys were dreaming this one up and this one up, and they don't really have any sense of place or anything that would ground them. Talk to us about how you convey that inspiring story.
I think like if you like I mentioned about the DNA, I think if you really stay focused on the DNA, a great example is like I Declare. Like one thing about it, it's a very quirky brand. I don't know if you've been there, but if you went in and you ate and they have an appetizer plate, you'd actually look at this sort of old school plantation home on a plate, and if you look in the background you see a UFO in the background, or if you look even closer, the Loch Ness monster is floating in the lake behind it. Now, we don't tell people we do that, and some people find it and they share it with their friends, and but I'd say probably like 90% of the people coming in have no idea of the depth of the brand and the tapestry and the work we put into sort of like making it part of that DNA and really, with rich textures. So it's kind of always sort of keeps people coming back because they keep learning more about it, which I think is really fun.
That's awesome. That's one of the few I haven't been to yet, but I'll remedy that when I come back to visit the fam in Dallas. When you think about building these out, how do you decide when a brand no longer fits the fam? I know, Velvet Taco, for instance, that needed to fly and go along on its own. When do you decide?
I think we're sort of always open to the idea of something leaving the nest. It's not we don't look at it as a bad thing because it sort of gives us a little bit more room to create something new. We're kind of really inspired to continue to do new things. So as a brand hits a point where it's just kind of firing on all cylinders, it's got a lot of blue sky. Sometimes people just approach us, sometimes it's us intentionally thinking it's time. And with that particular brand, that was just an crazy amount of interest in the brand at a very early stage of its life that kind of came along.
That's awesome. So it's sort of opportunistic. You see how they develop.
Yeah, because we are a, continue we have the creative chops to do a lot more brands. We never have a lack of new things. So we don't see it as a loss. We see it as an opportunity to put new things out in the world.
That makes sense. And anything else that you're doing from a cultural or culinary shift perspective, other than, like you said, get out into the world, see what's happening? Anything else that you're doing to kind of track what the next big thing's going to be?
Yeah, I think there's a few big ideas out there, and I think that there's a lot of disruption going on where some of it is just staying within full service restaurants, and some of it's a bit of a mix between what we're doing with food halls. We're getting into more full service restaurants in food halls, more creative, different ways to do it, and then even within the hotel space sort of combining with restaurants. There's a lot of, work and talks we've had with different hotel companies, and we think that that space is really ripe for disruption. And, the event and catering space is another one. And all these kind of coming together. I think the next couple of years are going to be we're going to see some really exciting things.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that whole territory is ripe for some disruption. Why do you think the opportunity lies mostly in full service versus QSR or fast casual?
I think fast casual has had a unbelievable run, and it's so funny. I'm such a contrarian. All the for the last 3 years, every private equity guy I've talked to is so fascinated by fast casual and QSR. And I think it's interesting that type of service got split up into QSR and fast casual. What how I see it is there's this emerging polished casual that's come about. So you have full service restaurants, casual dining is what they call it officially. And then I see this polished casual being like the bigger segment, and it's I think already becoming way bigger than fine dining. So it's this emerging thing that people want to see a chef in the kitchen on a regular basis. They want to get good value, but they want to have fresh cooked food. They care about what they put in their bodies. They want to have a beautifully designed place so when they do get out of their house, they can really have a great conversation and a nice time together that's sort of memorable. And I just see it evolving. And I think, fast casual, I think you bring little cups of money to the bank. And I think in full service, you bring buckets of money to the bank. So I think the pendulum's going to swing back to full service. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time. And certainly fast casual has gotten hit hard the last 6 months. The consumers just push back on pricing and many things. And it's just sort of, turned a little bit of a pendulum change.
Definitely. How do you keep the guests coming back? And this could be, obviously the DNA is intact, some awesome menus and signature items you can't find anywhere else. How do you keep those buckets rolling in?
I think if it was easy enough to just say one thing, man, I wish I could say that and I would just do it all the time. But unfortunately, like I think the guest is a bit of a moving target. A brand is a little bit of a moving target, and you've got to keep them all aligned and going the right direction. And, like any other company, ours sometimes get off course and we got to sort of pull it back and get it back on track. And, it's a full-time job really thinking through how do you keep your guests coming back. And we study one of our biggest metrics is guest traffic, and sometimes even more important than sales because it just tells you it's a leading indicator to what's going on in the business.
And in addition to traffic, do you measure guest satisfaction at all? Do you have any other touch points like that?
We do. We do. It's one of our major KPIs. And it's kind of interesting. I think there's been a change in restaurateurs that they sort of embrace Yelp now, where before they were very, petulant about avoiding it and not seeing any value in it. And between Google and Yelp, that all the information you want about how your customers think is right there. And we actually have it sent out to all stakeholders every day, review it, keep up with it. It's just a really important metrics for us.
It's brilliant. And how do you motivate guests to complete those, give you those scores, whether it's Yelp or a lot of people these days are living and dying restaurant wise by their Google reviews? How do you incentivize?
We don't. They just do it. But I will tell you another strength of having a regional company is that everybody in our company like has family and friends, and so I literally get calls every week, A for reservations and B for people that didn't have a good time or something happened or they had a great time. But I get a constant barrage of feedback. And who wants to have like Uncle Frank, call you up and tell you that he had bad service at Mexican Sugar? Nobody, right? So it really like we are local, we are here, we're very present. So our staff knows that, our teams know that, our customers know that. And I think it's what makes us a little special.
And do you feel like the team also is focused on things like the marketing calendar? Like, is it the same, you know, pace of things, or do you put as much emphasis on some of those signatures that are evergreen items?
I would say, look, I think we like to think of ourselves as a creative company. So a calendar in my mind brings up this idea of regimented, you're going through the same motions. I think that we're a little different than that. And we actually might call an audible and do something with the local food bank. We might do something that a chef's come up with a good idea because we don't have a lot of red tape. We'll just run it. So I think in that way, I never want to be a big company. I feel like I would sell something before I become something that's so regimented. I'd just be bored by it, maybe.
Totally. And in the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think will separate creative brand leaders like you are at these creative companies, from those who maybe fall behind?
I think it's all execution. Like, look, you can think you're creative or think you're good at something, but if you can't bring it to life and your customer doesn't, because at the end of the day, uh, what marketing really is what your customer says it is. It's not what you think it is. And I think that, your execution of the ideas at the end of the day is what really like will give you staying power.
Definitely. And I know that you've said the best ideas like these are the ones that not only, yeah, you can dream up, you execute against, but they also feel a little uncomfortable at first, which is, I think, what you said about Legacy Food Hall at first. If they don't scare you a little, they're probably not big enough. What do you think leaders should do in addition to taking that time to think bigger, to find some of those uncomfortable ideas?
I think a lot of it is challenge their team and their vendors to bring them. A lot of times if you're not talking to your vendors or developers about their problems, because if you really can help them solve a problem and create an opportunity in your organization, that's when it really gets exciting, because that's when you open the doors to some really new ideas, and that's where it is gets uncomfortable, because you have to see the end before anybody else, and see what's really your team is able to deliver, and sometimes to put your name on that and to actually commit to it is a hard thing. And I think that the more you do it, you get better at it, and the more comfortable you become with it.
Definitely. And when maybe morale dips or you're looking for the next idea, how do you inspire the team to, in addition to kind of challenging the team, what do you guys do day to day to stay inspired, to be on the lookout?
It's so funny. We have the saying here, just every day is a new day. I can't tell you how exciting it is that we're constantly having new people call us, new opportunities, ideas that we're floating. Somebody that wants us to buy their company, somebody wants to buy something of ours. I mean, it's just literally every day something's happening. So there's not really a lack of excitement and energy going in. And then if it's not that, it's that one of our chefs at Whiskey Cake just came up with a new fish and chips that's blowing everybody's mind. So everybody's talking about it. So there's sort of a constant flow of things going on that it's never dilutive. It's always kind of moving forward.
It's so exciting. We could riff on this all day.
No
We should
question.
do that. We'll switch to our starry-eyed sparks, a little bit of a lightning round. Jack, what's the best or most inspiring book you've read? And that could be recently or it could be ever. What's your fave?
Yeah, I just finished a book that was kind of interesting because you know, I'm actually not a guy that likes to think of myself as defined by my job, and
Mm,
it was Robin Sharma, and it was The Wealth Money Can't Buy. I thought it was amazing book and unbelievable advice and things that is if I could implement some of those things in my life, I'd be a better person.
that's awesome. Okay, I'll look that one up. What about a brand you admire that's not one of your own?
Oh, I think Hillstone, Houston's, those guys are just unbelievably talented, and I think they execute at a level that, they're industry icons.
Where does that come from?
Man, I wish I knew. I actually have to tell you though, they're maniacal about details. They deliver every single time. They keep their heads down. They know who they are, and they don't try to be somebody else.
I know a lot of restaurant companies look to them as, one of the ultimate examples and been around since what, the 70s?
Yeah.
Um, Not, and that's not Texas-based, right? It started in
Mm.
Tennessee.
Yeah, I it did not start in Texas for sure, and
That's so funny.
they're I think doing fantastic, and they can continue to just surprise me and grow in a very effective way.
That's awesome. One word that describes how you wanna lead in the next year.
I would say intentional. I like to think as I'm maturing a little bit, that things are done by design, and I just get better results that way when I'm just thinking a little bit more intentionally about what I want to happen versus let it just kind of happen on the fly and be a gunslinger.
Sure. I like your balanced approach, though. You're open to new opportunities and ideas that come, but at the same time, being intentional as well. What's one, like, new thing you'd like to try in the next year?
I think we're high on this hotel thing, so we really love the idea of the how do we share. We've kind of done fast casual. We still have fast casuals. We have polished casuals. We have these food halls. To me, the next extension of our business is how to take hospitality into another area that we can disrupt, and it's some kind of thing between catering and hotels, and we just think there's something there that's really big and something we've been kind of kicking around. So I don't
Yeah,
know if we'll do it or when we do it, but we're definitely have put some time and effort into thinking through it.
it's awesome. What is your go-to walk-on song or pump-up song? You've got a big
I
event
do.
or something. What's
Yeah,
happening?
it's probably More Than a Feeling by Boston, which I wore the record out when I first got it, and it just reminds me of my wife, and it's just a special song for me.
Oh, that's precious. And is your wife in the business as well, or
Certainly as a collective soul for me, she's certainly my confidant of who I talk to everything about. She's actually been so busy raising our children and handling other things. But I'd say today, certainly she's a partner with me 100%.
that's awesome. And what about your favorite cocktail or mocktail?
I'd say right now it's tequila. I've been on a wellness journey, so I don't drink as much as I used to. But when I do drink, it's a really good reposado, and it's usually with a slice of orange on an ice block. So that's kind of my go-to.
That's very responsible of you. I won't ask you to choose which is your favorite concept, but do you have a dish or drink from one of them that's your favorite right now? I'm sure they
I
rotate.
mean, you can't go wrong with like a beautiful steak. Like I just think that I have turned into a protein guy, so I definitely crave protein, and I probably been eating more steaks than I've ever eaten in my life. Yeah.
And I have to ask, what else does your wellness journey entail?
So it's actually pretty thorough. I don't have enough time to describe the whole thing, but I could tell you that I don't start my day until 10 o'clock. Anytime before 10 is my workout time or jack time. So I get to use it the way I want. I don't have to feel guilty for using it anymore. It's kind of a contract I made with myself. And I do. I work out probably 5 to 6 days a week, and am really much more conscious about what I put in my body food wise. And, my health is one of the most important things to me besides my family.
Very smart. And did that take a little while to come around to? Because as hospitality professionals, notorious for not doing some of those things, late nights, lots of delicious drinks.
I was the wall poster for that. As a brand creator, I was eating myself to death. Every day ended up in the bar of one of my restaurants for happy hour. I was that person for sure. And I realized, I think of life in quarters. I'm in the third quarter of my life, and now it's something that I've created such a beautiful life. Keeping it out there and keeping engaged in it is my priority.
And what made you realize that? Did you have a moment when you made a change and got on the journey?
Yeah, I feel like I had a really bad doctor, and you trust doctors, and when I finally came around and really realized the state that my body was in, I was in a big brain fog and not a healthy person, and it just really like was a time that I started to apply a lot of the things that I've done in my restaurant world, applying that to my health. And I created a whole new set of doctors for every single need I had in my life, and a new set of advisors, and surrounded myself with a plan. And it took about 2 years, but I've executed on it fairly well, and my blood work's looking really great. So I'm off statins and don't have high blood pressure anymore. So things are good.
Ah, that's awesome. I love that you would take the same approach that you would do, yeah, for setting everything up for your business as you do for your bod, and you're ready to roll.
It's unbelievable that, I never thought of that before until 2 years ago. But once I started doing it and started having success with it, I was like, man, this stuff really works.
Yes, and it does come down to systems, right? Habits and just putting those routines in place.
I could tell you one really quick. I read an article that was in the Wall Street Journal about if you can do 40 push-ups in a row, you're in the 1% of class that will not have a heart attack. And
Ooh.
so what I started doing was first, how many push-ups can I do? And then once I got to the point that I could actually do 40, I started challenging everyone in my office and everybody at the restaurants to do 40 push-ups with me. And I have an extensive list now of people who have actually joined the Jack 40 push-up club.
That is awesome. And do you stay at 40 or are you going to keep going?
Oh, I can do 80 in a row now. So,
Come on.
but it's my goal is to get to 100 on that. And now I'm on the pull-up challenge. So, I think that my journey is just starting on wellness and it'll continue through the rest of my life.
Spectacular. And what is your go-to workout? What are you doing most days?
I love lifting weights. I love putting on like classic rock, completely losing myself for an hour and then doing some cardio to finish up. And that's a great way to start my morning.
Brilliant. Well, I would totally do your 40 push-ups if I wasn't under the weather this week. I am with you. I love Pilates, lifting weights, running outside.
Next time we're together, let's knock out 40 together.
I know I can do 20. Why don't I work on that? And then I'll build up to the 40, Jack's 40.
Liz, I would like to see you in that 1% club. I
I would
don't want to
love
worry
to be
about
there.
you. Yes.
All right, putting it on my goals for the year.
There
Well,
you
Jack,
go.
thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your experience, your ideas. It's been so much fun to be with you. And like I said, longtime brand fan. Two final questions for you, Jack. What's one mindset or action you'd encourage brand leaders to try after listening to today?
I think challenge yourself to think bigger. How do you make a better, bigger, more effective organization? And what, what does that team look around you from every facet of your business? And if you can do that, I think you're going to have a better 2026.
And who is a creative brand leader you admire and think we should invite to stay starry-eyed next?
There's certainly many of them. A couple that I would say quickly would be, uh, Tony Montero from Uchi and High Hospitality. If you're familiar with Tony, he's really an inspiring leader, and I think he's very talented. Jason Basso, who's the owner of Truck Yard and Second Rodeo, I think is a really creative, talented genius. And those are two guys that I think are really on the forefront of great brands.
That's wonderful. And envisioning what's next, it sounds like, too. And before we go, Jack, I have to ask you to explain for anyone watching us on video your F mug.
So we have some charity initiatives this year that we're working on for 2026, and a big one is around a food bank, and effing hunger is what we're trying to do. So that's one of our goals for 2026. There's a lot of, believe it or not, Dallas has a lot of food insecurity, and you'd be shocked how many kids and elder people are having problems just getting good meals. And so, me personally and our organization want to make a big impact on that in 2026.
Wonderful. Well, F hunger, and we will include the link to donate in our show notes.
Love it.
Thank you, Jack. This has been wonderful.
All right. You take care, Liz. It was a pleasure meeting you. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Stay Starry-Eyed podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas, strategies, and tools you can use to move your brand and business forward. If you enjoyed this episode, here's how you can help share it with your fellow brand leaders who need it most. Hit follow, share it with a friend, and please leave us 5 stars or a quick review. You know we love all the stars. You can also find show notes, resources, and additional inspiration at starryeyedstrategy.com. Until next time, stay starry-eyed.